Alyssa, welcome to Pretty Smart. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh my gosh, so happy.
Okay, so you're a clinical somatic psychotherapist.
Yeah.
I know what a psychotherapist is. What's the somatic part?
So soma means body. So it's mind-body connection. Think like embodiment. Have you heard that term?
No.
Embodiment. So I love somatic work in the sense where you don't need to know the story to heal. You just want to learn to integrate the energy into your nervous system so it doesn't keep looping and putting you out of your, it's called zone of genius, or window of tolerance. It's essentially helping you regulate your nervous system so you can perform and be more productive as a result. Other people use it for healing, but for coaching, I use it more so for performance-based.
And when you say you don't have to know the story, do you mean like you don't have to know where the trauma originated?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. You don't have to even know. You can just feel a tension in your body and you can learn to breathe into it and allow it.
That's cool.
As long as it's not big T trauma, everybody has trauma, but as long as it's not big T trauma, meaning something, that's when you work with a trauma specialist, not a coach. I am licensed as a psychotherapist, but I work as a coach now. So kind of mixing the world of transformation and energy, strategy and energy. I like the two. That to me is where we create more sustainable change.
I was reading that since you were 12, you wanted to be a healer and live in the redwoods, but also wanted to live in New York City and do business wearing heels.
I sure did. Stillness and stilettos. Yeah.
So, that's funny. Have you achieved that in your own way?
I think I have, and I was just teaching my certification students yesterday, and I was talking about purpose and values. And because I was so clear that I wanted to be a healer and live in the redwoods and live in New York City and do marketing, I didn't think that I couldn't have both for some reason. And I just kept following the next intelligent step. And now I do that. I help people heal and I do marketing. I help people do marketing and heal because people will say I'm afraid of putting myself out there.
Right.
And you don't actually put yourself out there, you put your services out there. So I help them do some of the inner work so that they can share their magic more easily. But I think if I had looked outside to find a template, I wouldn't have found it. And I would have been overwhelmed with all the options versus getting really clear inside first and then creating it just naturally by following my aliveness.
I haven't heard anybody say you don't put yourself out there, you put your service. That's really sort of freeing.
Yeah. A lot of people get hooked up around, I hate asking for money.
Yeah.
But if we break it down, it's we don't actually ask for money. We state our services and people are empowered to say yes or no, no asking. And so doing some of the inner work helps us more easily grow our businesses or share the work that we're called to do in the world.
So you specialize in relationships.
I do.
And you mention in your work often the 4 stages of love.
Yes.
So what are those 4 stages?
Okay. So the 4 stages of love are I need love, I choose love, I am love, and love.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, the first stage, I need love, is the idea that in order to be happy,
I'm not whole,
yes,
and I need you to complete me.
Okay.
I'm half, and you are my other half. Rather than being a whole, I am sovereign in myself.
Yeah. Well, I think about my friends, and a lot of them, I think, are in a space where they're really ready for a partner.
Yeah.
And they're like, I want my husband. And it sounds a little bit like this, to be honest.
Yes, desperate.
I don't know if it's
desperate or really clingy or desirous.
It's right. It's desirous. It's looking for I think they feel like it's going to fulfill something.
Yes.
And it might momentarily.
Yes. Yes. But it also then creates a lot of clinging and it puts more pressure on the relationship rather than letting it flower into what it wants to be.
Yeah.
And we can project all of our fantasies of knight in shining armor from Disney and all of the things that we've been conditioned to believe what it will be. And no one relationship will ever give us that. The good and the bad news. It's the good news is then we learn how to source this love within inside of ourselves, to presence these parts. And really ideally we learn to, at least, as we move up the chain of the 4 stages, we learn to be with ourselves at every level. So then we can allow those parts of ourselves to be healed. Sometimes, people may attract a partner and they're not emotionally available or they don't need that, not that specifically, but maybe there's something that they don't need their partner to grow and evolve with them, and that's okay. We have non-negotiables.
So for I need love, what is the difference between codependency and just feeling like I'm ready to be partnered?
Yes, I think when there is obsessiveness and clinginess and overthinking about it, then that's pointing to something deeper inside of you.
Okay.
So what happens is if I feel lonely on stage 1, I'm going to outsource that loneliness to find somebody so I don't feel that way. But ironically, we abandon ourselves to look for somebody to fill us because we haven't been taught that we can meet that part of ourselves that feels lonely. And ironically, as that's stage 1 to stage 2, as we start to meet that part of us that feels lonely, ironically, we feel connected.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to let in a partner and feel that sense of connection.
Right. And that's I choose love.
That's I choose love.
Okay.
And so let me even break that down because mainstream society has it backwards. So we think that if I find a partner, then I'll be happy. But it's like when I'm happy, then I'll find a partner.
Yeah, and it's so backwards.
And actually when you are...
It's anything in life, right?
Is everything, exactly. And
Right.
ironically, the last place that we would be willing to look holds the key to our freedom. So if we feel lonely and we embrace that loneliness, we feel connected, ironically.
Wait, say that again.
So if we embrace loneliness,
Okay.
ironically, it opens us to connection.
Oh, yeah.
If we embrace unworthiness, ironically, we experience worthiness.
Right. Because you're saying whatever I'm feeling, I'm okay with.
Yes,
It's
and you feel
acceptance.
your wholeness. And,
Yeah.
and that part of us no longer needs to look outside to find the person to give us the needs. But nobody could ever fulfill every single one of our needs.
Yeah.
And so as we learn what I call insourcing that, we learn to be with these parts, we feel whole, we feel free and vibrant. And ironically, then we attract a partner no longer from those toxic conditioned patterns.
Right. Those wounds.
Those wounds, we actually attract a partner from the state of which we're operating from. Because again, we wouldn't put up with anything less.
So you talk about the happily ever after syndrome.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this like having Disney fever or is this,
A little bit.
is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
So what is this?
Yeah. So this is like the fantasy of my partner. This is really stage 1, that they will fulfill all of my needs.
Okay.
And then I'll live happily ever after. When we know that that's not true, but we haven't, I think we kind of want to think that, but actually it's much easier when we have the tools to be with these parts of ourselves and actually heal them at the root. It uplevels every relationship, not just romantic, friendships, coworkers, family, and a lot of the stages that were developed through my own love journey. And I remember when I was dating this beautiful man, he was such a beautiful man. There was no reason in my mind why I left him. But when I was getting licensed as a psychotherapist, I was doing a lot of my work around my mom, who was the parent that I had more troubles and problems with that I needed to heal. I started healing them at the root within myself around my mom, my projections, my story that she was clingy or needy, and then I was repulsed, right? And by men that were needy and all these things. So as I started to heal it within myself, I left that relationship, but I didn't know I was doing it at the time because I was no longer a puzzle piece. I was no longer a fit because I had healed him at the root. So in my mind, I'm like, why am I leaving this beautiful man? But in hindsight, I can see I no longer needed to play out my childhood problems with him because I had already resolved them.
And so you talk about this puzzle piece.
Yeah.
And it's that, well, you tell me. So what is that idea?
So you will clearly have a partner that will activate any of the triggers that are inside of you from childhood that are looking to be seen, presenced, integrated, and resolved. And so, for example, I'll give one example with my husband. So he, growing up, I started really growing my company in the last 5 years and really going for it. And I started getting busy at work. And that brought up a wound inside of him. When he was younger, his dad was really busy at work and his little boy didn't feel important. So he projected that onto me. Now, it's really important to understand your wounds and your patterns and your partners. You can hold them with compassion, not take it personally. You can be a loving presence to support each other in healing, but ultimately it's still up to you to meet those parts because most likely your partner is going to be activated at the time that you need healing. And so you want to know how to take care of it and come back to the conversation as well as heal it in the relationship if they're available for it. So there's something really important that I speak to around, you can have protective parts. These are defense mechanisms. So if my husband were to say, you're so busy, like, why do you keep working? And if he were to blame or judge or stay in this protector part, I would get defensive and then I would further disconnect from him. But if he was willing to be vulnerable and drop in to the vulnerability underneath the protective part and say, I miss you and I'm scared we're falling apart or drifting away. I'm going to drop into my heart and be like, oh my God, sweetheart, I love you. Thank you for telling me that you're important to me. When do we make time?
Esther Perel says, under every frustration, there's a desire.
Yes. Yes.
And that's kind of what you're pointing out, right? Like he was annoyed that you were busy, but really it's, I miss you.
Yes. Inside of every complaint, I would say, is a desire.
Okay.
Every complaint has the desire. So sharing it as a complaint is going to create defensiveness, right? But if you share the desire inside of it, you create connection. But the same thing with this patterning that I'm sharing. So there's protective parts who are defensive, and that's going to create more separation, versus if you feel the safety in the relationship, you can insource, what I call insourcing your own safety.
You have a whole vocabulary.
I do. I have a whole method.
Yeah.
And so insourcing that safety to really be with that part of you that's scared and be like, it's okay, sweetheart, I get that you're scared, or however somebody wants to compassionately talk to themselves to create that safety. Then they have the courage to be vulnerable when the relationship is warned of that, kind of vulnerability, if it's safe enough to do so. Share the vulnerability and test it out. I always say to people, don't believe me, but be willing to test it out and see how you come stronger together as a result.
You often here today and also in your videos talk about if the relationship is safe enough to do so.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to just practice this on somebody that was been bullying you and they don't, I think Brene Brown talks a lot about being vulnerable in the relationships that are worth your vulnerability and you feel safe to do so you're not re-traumatizing yourself. But I will share in psychotherapy terms, there's something called, and I've kind of changed the names, turtle and tiger.
Okay.
So one partner, for their own, to create safety, unconsciously sometimes become the tiger. They get louder when they don't feel safe. And often they date a turtle. And you can be different ones depending on who the relationship is. The turtle curls down and gets silent. And so what happens is then there's more disconnect. And so when you can insource your own safety, you create that safety within inside of yourself, you start to have the courage to open up if you're the turtle. And then if you're the tiger, start to simmer down so you actually meet in the middle.
So you could be humans.
So you can actually connect. Yeah.
I like the tiger and turtle analogy.
It's helpful.
Yeah. What are you?
Well, I'm a little bit more tiger, I would say. Yeah, with my husband. In past relationships, I've been a turtle.
That is so surprising.
Yeah.
I love that.
My husband's pretty chill. He's pretty zen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, the second stage is I choose love.
Yeah.
This one, you say most people are at, but it also stuck with me because how do you not choose someone from your childhood wounds? I feel like it's inevitable.
No, you are meant to. It's not bad that you're choosing somebody. So it's also the stronger the attraction, the deeper the wound, unfortunately. So if you're I
feel warm.
At the bar, you're them, that's usually a sign that there's some healing work to do.
Got it.
Now, I'm always advocating for never to be in a relationship with somebody that's abusive or, verbally or emotionally or physically. And when you attract somebody into you, there's a reason why you're attracted to them. It's not bad, but have the tools so that you can resolve and heal it and no longer keep trying. Because if you don't keep playing it out. Because if you're avoiding it, you're going to unconsciously attracted in somebody else. And so just do the work, have the tools, and then you're free.
Okay, so this is my question I'm most excited to ask you, because one of my favorite articles I've ever read in my life is in the New York Times. It's called "You Will Marry the Wrong Person."
Oh, yes.
So the author is a therapist, and he suggests something very similar to what you talk about, which is basically we draw individuals to us that reflect unresolved childhood issues, emotional baggage, dysfunction. But he says, like you said, it's okay.
It is okay.
You just have to be willing. You need to find somebody that is willing to do the work with you.
Yes, if that's your intention, or you can do the work on your own.
But then you most likely bounce.
Maybe if it's important, if it's a non-negotiable to have a partner that grows with you, then you bounce.
Oh.
If it's not, because not everybody has that agreement or non-negotiable, they may, because you can do the work. This is the beauty of the thing. One person changes the dance and the whole dance changes. You don't need both players, both people in the relationship to do the work to get free. A lot of times people are like, I need my wife to coach with you. And I start laughing because it's really a reflection of them needing to do the work about their wife.
But okay, just to push back, if somebody starts evolving
yes,
and the other partner doesn't, doesn't conflict arise because no. Okay.
No.
Tell me.
The person that's doing the work to evolve may evolve beyond them, but it doesn't necessarily need to be from conflict. It's similar to my story where it's like, I don't understand why I'm leaving. He's a beautiful man.
But you did leave.
But I did leave, but that didn't have to have conflict in it. I also left because I wanted somebody to do the work with me. And this was less of his priority.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So you can't actually tell yourself not to feel attracted to somebody because that your thoughts and your feelings speak a different dialect. It's like Chinese and German. It's like telling yourself isn't going to do anything. You still have feelings for somebody. So it's better instead to say, what is the pattern that's getting triggered inside of me? And how do I learn to really heal that at the root? Emotionally, somatically, mentally, right? I have a whole process around it. But as people start to do that, like that's what creates freedom and that helps us wake up to a bigger love. I would say 90% of relationships are about healing the past at this point. But once you graduate, it's about celebration of love. It's about waking up to the love that you are.
Whether it ultimately is self-love or love with a partner.
That's right.
Okay. So this guy in the article says the person who's best suited to us is not the person who shares our every taste, but the person who can negotiate differences in taste intelligently, the person who is good at disagreement. How important is it to be good at fighting?
It's very important. I think most people never have a plan around how to fight.
Right.
And so they're in their more limbic system and then they're fighting and they're more primitive instead of consciously. When I used to work with couples before they'd get married, I used to be a couples therapist, I would talk to them about what are your agreements for how you want to fight so that they didn't revert back to some of like the shame, blame, or whatever they witnessed in their parents or silent treatment. So then it's with mutual respect, it's with keeping my heart open, or say if I know my husband has abandonment issues, it's not his, but if he did, and I need space to myself, I'm more of a turtle, I may say, look, honey, this conversation isn't going anywhere that's productive. I need 5 minutes to myself, I'll come back. Or I need a day to myself, but I will come back so it doesn't activate more of his trigger. And then that way we learn and have a new template for how we do arguments by taking responsibility. And I also think the way that we share feedback is important to say, there's something called the feedback wheel that's really helpful. And I'm forgetting all of it at the top of my head, but it's essentially, this is what happened. This is what it reminded me of. This is my request moving forward. So it's no longer blaming, which is one of the most toxic things.
Wait, so this is what happened.
Yeah, this is what it reminded me of.
Okay.
And
this is what I need moving forward.
This is what I would, if there's a request moving forward.
Oh, that's a nice template. 3 prongs.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Talk to me about soulmates. I read recently on Instagram, I'm embarrassed to admit, Elizabeth Gilbert wrote, people think a soulmate is your perfect fit, and that's what everyone wants, but a true soulmate is a mirror. The person who shows you everything that is holding you back, the person who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life.
Yeah.
A true soulmate is probably the most important person you'll ever meet because they tear down your walls and smack you awake. But to live with a soulmate forever, nah, too painful.
I love Liz.
What do you think about that? Kind of made me sad. I want a soulmate forever.
I think, and I have a different frame on it, and I think everyone is your soulmate here to awaken and evolve your soul.
Everyone?
Everyone.
What do you mean?
There's egoic love, which is one special person. That's fine. I don't think ego is bad. Ego is just identification with thoughts and feelings. And we want healthy, integrated egos. But this is more the Disney. You're the one.
Yeah.
You're it. And then we control and manipulate and hold so that we make sure that they fill our needs. So I think it depends on the level of consciousness that you are hearing this. But for me, everyone is a mirror showing me how to love myself more fully. So
the taxi driver, everybody.
Everyone.
I get that.
So it's like, oh, if this taxi driver is short with me, how, instead of blaming the taxi driver, which really I can't change them, where am I short with myself? Or what does that trigger inside of me if it does? So anytime,
and how do I react to it?
Anytime I'm triggered, it's a projection happening, meaning they are a mirror where I haven't accepted a part of myself. Maybe in my family system, anger wasn't okay, and this taxi driver is just angry, and they can teach me how to have a healthy relationship with my anger. So I'm always learning and paying attention to triggers. That's how your soulmate is everyone, showing you how to love that part of you more fully.
Is it everyone and everything or just everyone?
Everyone and everything. You can project onto your cat. You can, anytime it's triggering, it's a mirror.
Got
So
it.
if it's not triggering, so for example, like the relationship I left, I'm just like, oh, it's no longer a fit. That means that I've healed it at the root.
Yeah.
But the trigger shows me that there's something unresolved looking to be healed inside.
Yeah. And if someone feels the trigger, which is the first step,
Yes.
is to recognize it.
Yes, that's
What's
right.
the next step?
To bring curiosity into it. So yes, recognize it, and then bring curiosity. Where did this come from? Get really more mindful about your relationship with this part of you. So if it's anger, what is my relationship with anger? I think it's easier to judge other people. And so just be really honest. They shouldn't be so angry. It's like, oh, where am I thinking I'm not allowed to be angry? Because they are your mirror. So the more you can get clear on your judgment about them, the more it shows you about that part and that pattern inside of you.
Yeah.
And ironically, in my method, it's about bringing acceptance to that part of you, mentally, emotionally, somatically. Ironically, as you accept it, you're freed from it.
Do you have to know the story to accept it or
don't.
no?
That's the
when you
somatic.
breathe 90 seconds.
That's when you can just allow
That's
it for
cool.
90 seconds. Yeah. And sometimes just with people, in relationship when they're arguing, or if a partner's going through a hard time, you might just ask for, do you want to be heard or helped? Because I think a lot of the times the partner might jump in to try to fix it and they really just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And so to have some of the language just to check in, how do I best love you? Or like really nourish the relationship, telling them every night going to bed, like pillow talk. It's like one thing you did that or said, or the way that you shut up for me, this is one way that I felt really loved by you today.
Yeah.
It helps not only deepen that connection, but it also informs your partner about how you're receiving their love so that they can continue showing up in that way, because we don't all receive love the same ways.
A lot of your work, the part that stuck out to me that I loved is that there really is no healing. For you, it's more about acceptance. What's the difference?
I think when we come from this idea of healing, it sounds like something's broken. And really, there's nothing broken inside of you. To me, the work is about parting the clouds that block the awareness of your wholeness. And so you can breathe into the sensations that are activated and ironically feel more sense of peace and freedom that's underneath it. Or you can question the thoughts that cloud your wholeness and freedom, or be with the scared part of you. But the way to actually create stuckness in your life is to identify with a pattern or a feeling. It's not, I'm sad, it's I'm experiencing sadness.
Wait, what did you say to create stuckness?
If you want to be stuck, you do
Who wants to be stuck?
Exactly. So you do two things. I want to make sure you get it. So
Okay.
You identify with it. So the moment you identify with something, it's hard to change it. So when
Right.
people say, I'm sad, I'm codependent, there's identity. It's like, oh, I have a codependent pattern, or codependency is here now, or sadness is here
It's
now.
like how we don't say someone's an alcoholic, they deal or struggle with alcoholism.
Yes. So there's no identity in it.
Got it.
Okay. The moment you're identified, you're more stuck with it. It's harder to change.
Okay.
The other thing is you judge it. Ironically, what you judge, you're stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
So the opposite is true. If you don't want to be stuck, you don't identify and you don't judge. You can even bring acceptance to the part of you that's judging.
Cool.
So then it's like, oh, there's the judge again. There, she's just working on overdrive. Appreciate you, Judge Judy. Whatever the pattern
Right.
is. It doesn't
There's
have to
the
be
anxiety
hard.
again.
Yeah.
Right.
And then just breathe. So for anxiety, I would
I like
breathe
that.
into it somatically, because anxiety is always in the mind about the future.
Yeah.
And so the way to break that is through somatic work, feeling into the body to break the chain of thinking, and you actually presence it. And it's like, I just think of it like this frantic, or you can think of like clouds in the sky. You are the sky, and these clouds are just blocking the awareness of the peace, the well-being, the freedom, the wholeness underneath everything. And by accepting it, ironically, it parts the clouds. And I always tell people, don't believe me, test it. So it's like, even if you feel a contraction in your body right now, wherever it may be, maybe the shoulder or the heart, if we're all to breathe into it as an experiment, just to fully allow it to be here.
You could see me contract.
Yeah.
Because I have questions.
Yeah, and I love it. We're going to get into that. And like, just to see, oh, there's that part, there's that contraction.
Yeah.
Breathing into it, allowing it, opening, not wanting to get rid of it. It's just saying, you're welcome here, like a kid, like just giving it a hug. Okay, I see you.
Okay.
You're all good. Breathing in and then letting go. And then you notice it starts to dissolve. So everything is looking for acceptance.
That works.
Yeah. And we think it's judging it, it's going to change it, but it's accepting it.
Yeah.
That allows it to move on, because every part of us and every person is going to defend to the degree they don't feel accepted.
Yeah.
So the moment these parts of us are seen or accepted, they move on. You know, so even these things like inner criticism or self-doubt or perfectionism, whatever we think we're dealing with, there's a positive intention inside all of them. It's like, oh, if I'm being critical with myself, you can ask yourself, what do you fear would happen if you stopped criticizing yourself? And you might say, well, if I stop criticizing myself, I won't do better. So it's like, oh, that critic just wants me to do better. Oh, okay, I can thank that part of me, but I can upgrade the method. Maybe I have a review, but ironically, being compassionate is more productive. So it's like, oh, I can choose to be compassionate with these parts and still upgrade the behavior of doing better moving forward.
It's almost like you have to override your first instinct. You have to acknowledge it, override, and have a different tool to come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we've been conditioned innocently without the right tools.
Yeah.
And I think life gives us feedback. Suffering has an intelligence in it. So why not test something else out just for one day or 1 week to say, oh, what if I was, whatever, anybody listening, whatever your number one block is, people pleasing, perfectionism, self-doubt, whatever it is, if you change your relationship with that block changes. So for 1 day or 1 week, can you thank that part of you for trying to protect you? And just breathe into it. Be like, okay, there you are. You're just trying to make sure, if it's the inner critic, that I'm doing better moving forward. Thank you. And then still move forward, but you're doing it from a place of ease and compassion. It can change your life.
The third stage is that love lives within us.
Yeah.
How do we, it sounds amazing. How do we truly embody it?
Yeah. It's more about a removal process around the idea that somebody else gave it to us. One of my practices is to sit in stillness and really question things. Let's do an exercise. So think of, who do you feel, and this is for you and everybody listening, who have you felt most loved by in the world?
Probably my parents.
Yeah. So let yourself just feel into that love that they've offered you, and notice how it starts changing your body as you think about them and the love that they have for you.
I sat up taller.
And just like maybe there's a memory or a specific moment when you felt really loved by them. And notice what starts happening to your body.
My breath slows down. And my heart rate slows.
Yeah. And would you say you feel more or less love in this moment?
More.
Yeah. So you just access that without them being here. That means it's yours. That they evoked
really
it inside
powerful.
of you. And so we can do this with any partner that we think we lost something. We can really sit in silence to discover, did I really lose anything? Or was it just a thought that robbed me of my own realization?
That's so good for breakups.
That nobody can give you love and nobody can take it away. It's beautiful. So then you get to, and if somebody wants to more fully develop this, sit in silence, play a song that makes you feel so loved, use a memory in your life or journal to keep activating it and to keep knowing that this is your power, that it's the power's in you, not them. And you can access that to offer that to yourself anytime you need it.
Yeah.
That's stage 3.
Stage 4, simply love.
Yes.
You use a Rumi quote, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop.
It's so
That's
good.
so good.
It's so good. So the way to really discover stage 4 is more the removal around identity. So if you write down, I am, for myself, I'm a woman, I'm 40, I am an entrepreneur, whatever the stories are that we think we are, sit with each one of those and really question, can I absolutely know that that's true? Without going to my mind, the past, or the future, just right here and now, who and what am I when I don't reference memory, when I don't reference a story of who I am? Who am I beyond the story? And then it's an inquiry you really sit with. There's a presence here.
Yeah.
Because my body changes, my age, my profession, my relationships, feelings come and go, thoughts come and go, but something doesn't come and go. And what is that?
And that's your soul.
And that is, there's different words for it. I would say presence. The presence of who and what you are. Or, that some people may call it soul. But what is the direct experience of what's here beyond a story, beyond referencing my mind to tell me who I think I am?
You're really giving me something to think about.
And notice, like, instead of when I say, who am I, which is the real inquiry, self-inquiry, when I say, who am I, don't go looking to fill silence or stillness with something, because the mind's always looking to fill it with something. Notice what's noticing. Some people might say there's an observer, but even prior to someone observing, there's just an observing. There's a bigger presence that these thoughts come and go within, the feelings come and go within. And this is where we start going more to a spiritual enlightenment, more of a deeper inquiry.
Yeah.
For those that are interested and ready.
I was having resistance to that stage. I was with you on all 3 stages. I have to work on that one.
Yeah, it's more about, and it's more of a removal. It's like, oh, I think that I'm Danielle. I think that I have this, or I am that. And then, but really, honestly, and your honesty is the best key. Just really genuinely looking. Can I know without a shadow of a doubt, without referencing my mind, that that's true in this moment? And then it's like, well, where's the proof that I have a past?
Well, we've worked so hard, most of us, to become things, right? And so it's like removing all of it. It's like, what are you doing to me?
The ego is like on a death grip for its own survival, holding on. And that's innocent.
You asked your husband this on your pod, so I want to ask you.
Okay.
What is the hack to having a vibrant, healthy, powerful, fulfilling relationship?
100% responsibility. 100%. And most people know this, but they don't really live it. So I would say the foundation to any thriving relationship is taking personal responsibility for my part. I also think it's really helpful to know what my partner's wounds are and what mine are, so we can see how they play a puzzle piece together. And oftentimes we end up blocking love that's available to us because of our patterns. And so once we understand what ours are and how we block love, it's easier to then remove that. So when we don't see it, it's harder to change it. So the first step is awareness. But relationships are so good, and there's so many hacks that people just don't know, that can really support them, which is talking from the vulnerability instead of the defensive part, learning to be there for myself in the ways that I was looking for my partner or my parents in the past to be there, because then we get to in-source that safety. And then we just project love onto others. And it doesn't mean we won't have little tiffs or misunderstandings, but you know how to navigate them more easily. You have the tools.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest gems I would say I've discovered is that truly, when I choose to keep my heart open, I'm free. And so even if I open my heart to my closed heart, it's like, okay, it's okay that I don't want to open, I don't feel safe. That's okay. Just that real acceptance feels more of the feminine. So part of my methodology is awareness and then acceptance. But this acceptance is embracing the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, embracing those parts of you, and then moving into more of the masculine, taking action in our businesses and our relationships, because it's a lot easier to do that when we're not at war inside. Because sometimes we're like, I want love, but I'm scared of it, right? We've got this competing desire inside. And so when we can...
A lot of that's subconscious, though.
100%. That's right. So if somebody says, anytime they have a goal, they want to arrive at a goal and they're not able to do it, I would always ask them, what do I fear would happen if I got that goal? So it's like, what do I fear would happen if I was in the relationship? And then it helps ask powerful questions to hear your own insights and wisdom. It's like, oh my God, I'm afraid I'd be hurt again because I loved deeply and I got hurt. And then I would ask that person, can you absolutely know that that relationship ending hurt you? Or was it the story you told yourself about the ending that hurt you?
Yeah.
Because then if they believed that the next person that was coming was going to be a better fit and a more amazing relationship, that wouldn't hurt them. So that's their power, not in the situation.
Yeah. And that's the thing with women, our lives keep getting better.
They do keep getting better. They do keep getting better.
They do. Every time I've been heartbroken, I feel like it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And then each time I'm in a better relationship.
And that's a reflection of the work that you've done.
So you have to believe that for yourself.
And you have to have the tools to keep mending your heart.
Oh,
it's not time that heals. It's love that heals. So the more you bring love to those tender parts, the more they heal.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, I have some rapid fire for you.
Okay, let's do it.
What is a book that you've read that you think everybody should read?
A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Hands down, changed my life.
When did you read it?
Whenever Oprah did the thing, 2012, 2008, I have no idea. A while
ago.
Yeah. I think that is like my Bible where I've read it. It's by my nightstand. I've read it, and every time I keep opening it, maybe 35 times, I keep opening it, and there's a different level that I get. It's profound, and that's really stage 4. That's stage 4 for people that are interested.
I think I'm probably around stage 3 because I cannot get, like, I try to read that book so many times, and I'm gonna try until I'm there.
Yeah. And he says, like, trust the intelligence of when it feels right for you.
Pick a card from the deck.
Yes.
Any card that you feel pulled to.
Okay.
Feel the energy of the cards.
Ooh. Okay. What's your favorite scent? I love rose.
You do.
I also love sandalwood.
Both are good.
Yeah, maybe together.
You kind of, if I were to name a flower, like you as a flower, it would be rose.
Aw, thank you.
I see that.
Thank you.
Alyssa, what is the smartest decision you've ever made?
To follow my intuition moment to moment, beyond logic, to trust my gut knowing, and just powerfully move forward.
I've never had anybody say that. That's a great answer.
That's your compass. That's your power. It's like it guides us moment to moment.
You're making me think, so I have one last question. Because I was with my girlfriends at dinner the other night, and we were, a lot of times off camera, I'll ask women in this chair, if they've been divorced, when you were walking down the aisle, did you know? Like, did you have a gut feeling? And 10 out of 10 say, I had like this gut instinct.
Wow.
No one has said no.
Wow.
And so my girlfriend was like, I see how I could do that.
Yeah.
Like, I could want other things or want that person so badly. I could walk down the aisle knowing, like, this doesn't feel totally right.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy to do.
Yeah.
But you're saying...
So my story of that was that I was with my husband, and I was so honest with him. Maybe too honest, but I would just say, the first time I met him, I was like, this is a for now thing. I don't want to get your hopes or expectations. Bless, I sent him an email after our first date. We were like in Ojai, under the stars, in a hot spring. And he's like, I can see us old together. And I got scared. I was like, oh, this is fast. I wrote him an email. I wrote him an email just saying, this is a for now thing. I don't see it going further. It's almost 15 years later. I've been with my husband. And I think that was because I wasn't choosing a pattern. I was choosing because I had healed so much with my mom. It was the fresh slate. I didn't recognize him at first. He is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I deeply love this man, but I was honest with him that I wasn't ready to marry him for maybe 3.5 years. And then one day, I had done the work with him. I ended up this tantric man that I left. I felt like there was still some grief in my heart, and I was honest about that. And I was at a personal development retreat volunteering there. And because everybody's amplified for, 300 people for 5 days doing the work, I was able to access a level of grief where my ex he was a musician. And I told my husband, my boyfriend, husband at the time, and I said, I think this is ready to be lifted inside my heart, because I wasn't able to access it again on my own. And we had 5 minutes before we round up as faculty to support these students. He's like, let's go to the room. Bless my husband for being able to hold space. I put on a song of my ex. He was singing. I was able to access the grief like Gestalt psychotherapy.
Wow.
I spoke to an open chair, telling my ex how I was like...
In front of your husband.
In front of my husband, holding space, just neutral observer, being there, holding space. I can process myself, but he just wanted to hold me in it. And I was like, you said you'd never leave me. And I just I went to the grief of that heartache. And it took 90 seconds to fully feel it all the way through, and it lifted. It was out of my heart. And I was like in relationship with my husband like this, like slightly looking off. And that moment, I was 100% in devotion to him and ready to marry him.
Whoa.
From that retreat, I kept being like this, and there was no ring. I was like dangling my fingers and like, oh, something's missing. I'm ready to get married. I was really clear, but I needed to honor the grief that was blocking me from fully being into that relationship.
Whoa. You're making me think of the movie Past Lives. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
You have to watch it. It's like the idea is, can you love someone and hold space for other people they have loved?
Yes.
And it's really difficult for people.
Yeah, because they're not in stage 3 yet.
Yeah.
The moment you're in stage 3, you realize how beautiful that you've had other loves that opened you. I want to continue opening you, you know, because there's no scarcity. There's no fear of abandonment at stage 3.
Yeah. There's trust.
Yes, and there's embodiment
self.
of what you are, that no one can take it away, and that this partner can't take it away. It's a freeing kind of love.
For me, a huge freeing moment was trust in self, that even if someone cheated on me or left me or whatever it was, that I had the tools to be okay. I didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's like not necessarily trust in your partner, it's trust in yourself.
That's right. It's always trust in yourself. And that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that people have the tools to navigate their relationships, and also doing the inner work helps us navigate our businesses. It's the same tools, but related to business and love. Those are my 2 favorite areas.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for this.
Yeah. So good.
Thanks for your energy.
I love you.
Love you too.